We live in a time where politics doesn't just feel chaotic. It feels surreal, like a stage play where the actors have forgotten their lines and are desperately improvising, making it up as they go along. But tonight's story is one of those moments where reality breaks through in the sharpest possible way. Because California Governor Gavin Newsom just did something Donald Trump couldn't handle. He called Trump fat. He called him weak. He called him a coward. And what happened next was absolutely insane. Now, let me make this clear right from the start. This isn't about body shaming. This isn't about cheap insults. This is about power, about corruption, about hypocrisy, and about a man, Donald Trump, who built his entire brand on pretending to be strong, disciplined, and untouchable, only to crumble under the simplest of truths. Newsom's words were not just an insult. They were a mirror, reflecting back to Trump exactly what he has become: soft, fragile, bloated with ego, and utterly incapable of real leadership. But to understand how we got here, let's rewind. Speaker Mike Johnson, the slippery operator now holding the gavel, was all over the media, from Fox News to ABC's Good Morning America, trying to defend a government shutdown that he and his party orchestrated. He tried to spin it as an unfortunate necessity, but the truth slipped out. He admitted, "This is what Republicans have wanted all along. They've always dreamed of downsizing government, stripping programs, cutting health care, and dismantling the safety nets that millions of Americans rely on. And now, under Trump's looming shadow, they finally had their chance." Then came Jack Posobiec on Fox, one of Trump's loudest cheerleaders. He gushed over Trump's speech to the military, calling it the best thing they'd heard since General Patton. But his reasoning was as absurd as it was offensive. He said, and I quote, "A fat general can't march, and a fat admiral is going to sink the ship." He repeated it again and again, as if hammering the point would make it profound. But let's be honest, that was never about fitness. It was about creating a crude moral judgment, a simple way to say discipline equals thin, weakness equals fat. But here's the irony, so sharp you could cut steel with it. Look at Donald Trump. Look at the man they worship. This is someone who lives off McDonald's, KFC, Diet Coke, and late-night cheeseburgers in bed. Someone who brags about never exercising. Someone who paints his face with bronzer before walking onto a stage in front of half-empty gyms and calls it a rally. If you want to talk about a fat admiral sinking the ship, maybe start with the guy at the wheel. And that's where Gavin Newsom came in. Newsom has always had a sharp tongue, but what he unleashed here was more than criticism. It was a surgical strike. He called Trump too weak to climb stairs, too weak to control his own party, too weak to finish anything he starts. He painted him as a coward who chickens out every single time, a man incapable of seeing anything through to the end. And then came the knockout line: enjoy your bronzer, your Diet Coke, and your empty high school gym rallies before they ship you off to memory care with grandma. That line wasn't just funny. It wasn't just mean. It was devastating, because it captured everything Trump fears most: the image of being old, irrelevant, and powerless. For a man obsessed with strength, dominance, and image, being reduced to a punchline about Diet Coke and assisted living is worse than any policy debate, worse than any political defeat. It stripped him bare, and Newsom didn't stop there. He called Trump out for shutting down the government just to strip health care from babies, mothers, and grandmothers. He tied Trump's pettiness to the real-world damage he was causing, and the internet erupted. Clips of Newsom's remarks went viral, spreading faster than any of Trump's tired insults ever could. Now, while Trump was seething, his defenders scrambled to do damage control. Mike Johnson, desperate to keep his patron happy, went on ABC and tried to brush off Trump's latest racist deepfake video as humor. Think about that. The President of the United States, instead of governing, is spending his time posting fake videos and memes online, and his Speaker of the House is defending it as comedy. Johnson actually said, Trump uses social media for humor. But ask yourself this: should the President of the United States really be doing that? Should the person in the most powerful office in the world be using social media like a bored teenager making memes? Would the CEO of Apple do that? Would the CEO of Google? Of course not. Because leaders take their jobs seriously. Trump doesn't. He never has. And then came the most dangerous revelation of all. Trump told the Pentagon He wanted to use American cities as training grounds for the U.S. military. He literally called citizens the enemy within. Imagine that. The man sworn to defend the Constitution, openly talking about turning the army inward against the American people. This wasn't some slip of the tongue. This was deliberate. This was authoritarianism in plain sight. The kind of talk you'd expect from dictators, not presidents. When pressed, Mike Johnson refused to condemn it. He dodged, he deflected, he spun. He even tried to claim that Trump had cleaned up crime by sending National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. He turned a chilling authoritarian statement into a talking point about public safety. But everyone watching could see what was really happening. Trump was testing the waters, floating the idea, seeing how far he could push. And Johnson, like every other coward in Trump's orbit, went along with it. Then, Trump doubled down in a way that was even more dangerous, talking about the government shutdown. He admitted out loud that it gave him the chance to do things that were irreversible. He bragged that he could cut programs, slash benefits fire workers, not because of fraud or abuse, but because the shutdown gave him cover to punish Americans. He actually said, "We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible. We can cut large numbers of people out." Think about those words. A president threatening to strip benefits, destroy jobs, and hurt families just because he can. That's not leadership. That's sadism. That's cruelty. That's dictatorship 101. And Mike Johnson, he nodded along. He admitted this is what they've always wanted. To use chaos as cover to dismantle the government, to gut programs, to shrink the state until it's powerless to protect ordinary people, but perfectly designed to protect the rich. This isn't incompetence. This is intentional. This is what happens when a party gives up on governing and sells its soul to a man who can't even finish a coherent sentence without contradicting himself. Now, let's be real here. Newsom's attack went viral because it was sharp, funny, and brutal. But the reason it mattered so much is because it exposed the truth that Trump's allies don't want anyone to say out loud. Trump is weak. Trump is lazy. Trump is old. Trump is incompetent. And Trump is dangerous. That combination is lethal, because a man who is both desperate and incapable will lash out in ways that hurt everyone else. And right now, with a government shutdown, a crumbling base, and investigations closing in on him, Trump is more desperate than ever. So yes, Newsom called him fat. And yes, the world laughed. But what happened next? The panic from Republicans, the lies, the authoritarian threats, the desperate spin shows us the real picture. This is not a political party. This is not a movement. This is a cult built around a man who has nothing left but his ego. A man who will burn down the house if it means he gets to sit on the ashes like a king. Trump wants to believe he's still strong. He wants to believe people still worship him. But every time someone like Newsom tears through the facade, he unravels a little more. The mask slips. The illusion fades. And what's left is a bitter, fragile man lashing out at shadows. He is not General Patton. He is not a strong man. He is a bloated, orange-tinted relic of the past, ranting on social media while the world laughs at him. And here's the truth no one in his circle will admit. History is not going to remember him as a leader. History is going to remember him as a cautionary tale. The fat admiral who sank the ship. The man who saw his own people as enemies. The coward who threatened and bullied but could never actually finish anything. The man who called himself strong while relying on makeup bronzer and Diet Coke to get through the day. That's his legacy. That's what Newsom exposed. So the choice is clear. Do we let this circus go on? Do we keep funding a government used as a weapon against its own people? Do we keep pretending this is normal? Or do we finally stand up and say enough? Because silence is complicity. And complicity is how authoritarianism wins. If you've had enough, if you believe the truth matters. If you believe leadership should be more than memes and tantrums, then don't just sit back. Because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain, exposing the lies, and shining a light on the truth. Donald Trump may have his bronzer, his Diet Coke, and his half-empty rallies. But we have something he will never have, the truth. And the truth is simple. He is weak, he is dangerous, and he is finished.